Hello, my name is Neil Wiley and I'm one of the members at Pendennis Good News Church, and it's my pleasure to be bringing you today's devotional. It's going to be a little bit different today, not going to be looking at a specific part of scripture. We're going to be talking about what it means for students and teachers to be back at school, because I serve as a chaplain in a secondary school here in North Somerset, in Nailsea Secondary School, which I'm currently in at present. And I also work in a capacity for the Diocese of Bath and Wells as a chaplain for the Multi-Academy Trust there, which serves 33 primary schools across the Bath and Somerset area. So I'm seeing all sides of education going back at the moment. And I think so many staff and students were desperate to get back to school. They were sick of being in lockdown, they were sick of virtual lessons, they were sick of having to try and do everything online. Some students definitely realised how much they benefited from being in school, but it's been really good to be back personally for me as well. I know my boys were really keen to get back to school as well and be with their friends and get back to learning, as I may have not been the most attentive teacher at all times in lockdown. I think one of the key things to remember for people going back to school is that it is not the same as it was before we went into lockdown. People aren't allowed to integrate within different year groups in this school. The year 7s are in one area, year 8s in another. We unfortunately had a confirmed case of COVID in one year group, which means that the whole year 8 group was sent home and have to isolate for 2 weeks, which is a real shame. We have to go through litres and litres of hand sanitizer, which is the school has to pay for out of its own budget, finances that they did not even have thinking about spending this time last year. The cleaning rotas have to go up within school as well, so that's another draw on school budgets. And school budgets, which were already fairly strained at the best of times, are now having to find this extra cash and make savings in other parts of the budget. And the mental health of students as well is something that really, really needs to be taken into account in this time. So many students have come back really glad to be back, but then suddenly they are overwhelmed with the amount of information, the people that they're back in with. Because for 6 months, most of us have only really seen who we've wanted to see. We've not had to go around and be in large groups of people unless we absolutely had to. And now we've gone from being in small classrooms in our houses back to being, I'm in a school of 1,000 people here, and some schools across the area are 1,500, 2,000 between students and staff. And for some students and even some staff, that is overwhelming now, after having this season where we've had this almost consistent social anxiety going around us about COVID-19, and now we are trying to maintain some semblance of normality for the sake of the students and for the sake of their education. One big thing that I would appreciate people praying about is the Christian unions that have happened in schools up and down the country. As in general, year groups are not allowed to mix or integrate. That means that we can't have a Christian union group meet in the school. And we had a lovely group here of about 10 students who were all had a faith, were all engaging, and we were doing some really fantastic Bible study together, praying together, and really had a group of young people that were on a journey in school who've had a safe place where they could come and talk about faith and be together. And on the other side of that, there's no space for students to get to hear about the good news of Jesus in school in a CU group with their friends. The ability for there to be outside assembly groups coming in as well. I'm currently working on developing some online assemblies that can be delivered to primary schools, and this looks like it's going to be the way ahead for the coming months until we have a vaccine and that we can be a bit freer with the movement of people in and around schools. Prayers for staff would be so important as well, as I know there's so many staff that have had real stressful times during lockdown, and that they discovered that while they were fantastic secondary school teachers, they struggled being primary school teachers to their own kids. And then they've been worried about coming back and again managing that workload of home and school, because so many teachers, and I think it's very true within the teaching profession, that it is not a 9 o'clock till 3 o'clock job. There is hours and hours of prep being done at home and marking being done at home, lesson planning and communication, safeguarding concerns that have to be dealt with, and that sometimes take hours of phone calls and emails, because sometimes you don't want to make sure that a student is safe to be going home, and you can't just go at 3 o'clock, right, that's that done. as well as the emotional weight of taking that home as well. Prayer for students that are actually really glad to be back in school, because home isn't always the best place for them. We were really lucky that in a lot of schools, and Nailsea especially, did manage to get a lot of students who are from the lower, maybe in lower income or potentially at risk, to be in school throughout the lockdown, and only were off during the summer holidays, which was really, really good to see. And the same with a lot of primary schools as well around the country. I think what is going to be coming out of education over the next couple of years is the fallout from lockdown. Well, some people say, oh, it was only 3 months. For some students, that was their exams. They've missed their exams. And for some the students who normally would be able to maybe last minute pull it out of the bag, they may have missed out on that opportunity and having to resit or redo years. For others, their confidence had been building for months and months to actually enjoy school, and then boom, the rug was pulled out and they were back at home, where they could have been even more isolated at home. Students with learning difficulties or maybe sort of autistic spectrum disorders, having had their routines disrupted, and then once they've settled into a routine at home after trying to adjust to not being at school, going back to school again and having to engage. The lockdown has affected children and young people so much, and unfortunately we will be seeing the fallout for this for many years to come. So I'm really pleased as a chaplain, as someone who wants to live and love as Jesus did in school, to be that positive Christian presence, that I can be a part of that. And that there are other chaplains and Christian schools workers all across the country who will be playing a big role in school life. I've had staff asking for prayer about challenging things, and we've got students who are in dire need of pastoral support, and it's a real privilege to be a positive Christian presence in the schools. So thank you. Please keep praying for your schools locally. Within our church, we're praying for the primary schools in Staple Hill and Downend and the surrounding areas, the secondary schools that our kids from Pendennis go to. And what can we do but pray in this time? Even I'm finding there's less that I can do, but what I should be doing is handing it over to God. He can do immeasurably more than anything that I could even conceive. So thank you for listening to me today. I look forward to hopefully at some point being able to be together as a church. But until then, we shall continue doing things online. So thank you, and let's keep praying for our schools and our schools workers.